50 cents. and don't want people to see you on our website or in the recording of the email of the webinar, then turn your video off. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Jessica Daughtry from causeIMPACTS to kick us off. Jessica, I think you're on mute.
Hello again. Can you guys hear me now? Okay.
Oh, we can hear you. We can hear you now.
Perfect. Sorry about that. So the goal of today's webinar is really to provide straight talk and clarity around what resources exist for small, medium-sized businesses and people that are being impacted by COVID-19. There's a lot of stuff out there, so we hopefully can end this and spend the second half with a lot of question answering. So to put this in perspective, my company, causeIMPACTS, is a social impact strategy consulting firm. We provide professional services to the nonprofit sector, private sector, public sector. And, quite frankly, we are ourselves being really impacted right now by this. We have a team of 4 employees. And I have a lot of questions about how long we're actually going to have work. Some of the contracts we have might be, being put on hold or maybe indefinitely put on hold. And a lot of professional services firms are in this same place. It's not that our work is not important right now. It's that people are in triage mode and everyone's trying to figure out what to do right now. So I'm trying to figure out what work do I have, will I have for my employees? We have to plan ahead. Maybe this month we're fine. Would we be fine 6 months from now? And I know a lot of us have the same questions. We also want to be really great to our employees, but we also have to think about the business. So hopefully throughout this webinar, we'll be able to provide some of that straight talk and some of those answers. Next slide. All right, so like we said, some of the first services cut are professional services in an economic downturn, and now a lot of us are working from home. I myself have 2 small humans here that are intermittently screaming, and my husband and I are cycle working. So he's an engineer with Northrop Grumman, and he is now on duty while I'm in here working. So it's crazy times, and hopefully we can provide some answers. So we're going to go to our next speaker, which is Caroline Tarosis from the Workforce Development, Aging and Community Services Department. The county has put together already so many resources. So hopefully she can shed some light on where to get those and what's going on and what's being put together. And maybe even Caroline explain some of the federal policies that are being trying to be decided upon as far as stimulus packages. So I've handed to Caroline.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And this is, can everyone hear me? I'll assume that's a yes, since I did unmute myself.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great, fantastic. So again, hi everyone, my name is Caroline Tarosis. I'm here from LA County Workforce Development, Aging and Community Services. We are a county department. We operate the public workforce system. And we also have funding for business development in and around LA County. As you know, there are 88 cities throughout the county, and then we have specific economic modeling software where we've been able to identify about 245,000 businesses in the county. So of course, we are already hard at work figuring out how many businesses we think are going to be affected by this, where they are, how do we help them, and we are actively trying to push out information to businesses. I see that there are several questions related to specific business guidance, and I'm happy to answer those at the end. Again, we're encouraging all of our employees to keep people all of our employers to keep people employed to the extent possible. If it's a situation where you can reduce hours and your employees can get potentially partial unemployment insurance, if we can explore work sharing through the Employment Development Department, and for employers that are needing to remain open during this time, of course, following all the proper procedures. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thanks. So who are we? For those of you who don't know who we are, and I've tried to get a sense of our audience, I see several of you that we recognize and that we know. We are the business development arm of the workforce agency for the county. We are out there engaging with the business community, determining where the needs of business are, the growth industries, and helping businesses survive and thrive in LA County so that they can grow in industries that pay family sustaining wages and that support our workers, as they come through economic mobility and family self-sufficiency mechanisms to be employed and stay employed in the county. For all of the latest breaking information, you can follow us at LA County Biz Dev across various social platforms. Next slide, please. So right now, specifically, what are we doing? We've seen a huge influx in calls, emails, inquiries related to all of the services that we offer for businesses and as well as workers. Our team on the workforce side operates what's called rapid response, which is a service through funding from the State Employment Development Department. If you know that you are going to be laying off a significant number of employees or closing, not only do you need to notify the appropriate channels, but you also can get assistance from our team in A, first layoff aversion, but B, if you know that you need to lay off people, rapid response in helping get these individuals reemployed, help you get all the services that you need. And if you're interested in rapid response services and you want to talk and have a one-on-one consultation, you can email us both at our email address bizdev, which is there, as well as rapid response, so RAPID, RESPONSE at wedax.lacounty.gov. We can help work with your employees to quickly retrain them and place them in new jobs. And we can work with you to see if there are additional resources that we can provide to you as a business as you're dealing with these layoffs and downsizing. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, got it, layoff aversion, thanks. So the other service that we offer completely confidential and free of charge is what's called layoff aversion. If you think that you might need to downsize, but you haven't done so already, if you are having economic hardship, and again, we've been able to determine that if we were to lose all of our service industry jobs, for example, in the county, food service, retail, hospitality jobs in the county, we would be facing, close to a 25% unemployment rate in LA County. So we know that the need is imminent, it's dire, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the resources at the state and federal level in a moment, but we completely understand, and we've seen a significant increase in requests for our layoff aversion services. We've partnered with the LA Economic Development Corporation, very trusted partner that has access to a wealth of information, and they are kind of on the front lines, and they provide those direct, confidential services to determine exactly where can we leverage additional sources of funding for you as a business. Are there any specific services, depending on the way that your business is structured, where you could avail yourself of additional resources locally at the state level and federally? And can we put together a free business plan for you in order to avert as many layoffs as possible? Again, if you need that service, the information is on the slide, and I'm happy to send that information around as soon as this is over. Next slide, please. Also, we've seen a significant influx in requests for services on the worker side as well, which is completely understandable. And the state itself has seen almost a deluge of applications for unemployment insurance. Individuals are eligible for unemployment insurance if they've either been laid off or had their work hours reduced. And again, those individuals need to be employees of the company, although again, there's an activation of disaster unemployment insurance that's coming for people who are potentially independent contractors or in the gig economy, which we can share more information about. But in terms of the unemployment insurance, we can help through both our America's Job Centers that we have in the county, as well as help connect you directly with the state employment development department. We really are encouraging people to apply for unemployment insurance online. It's the safest way to do this. It minimizes contact. Please, if you don't need to, do not go into any sort of physical location. And additionally, we have been told anecdotally that there's an extremely high call volume for people who are trying to call in to apply for unemployment insurance or ask questions. So again, to the extent possible, go to labor.ca.gov. There's also access to disability insurance if you've had to reduce hours, or an employee of yours has had to reduce hours or stay home to care for themselves in the wake of COVID. There's paid family leave if they're caring for a family member. There's also differing variations of paid sick leave depending on the company, as well as at the state. And there's federal paid sick leave that has been activated, expected to go into effect no later than April 2nd. And then of course there's workers' comp if one of your employees has been injured, i.e. contracted COVID at work. And then of course there's work sharing, which I briefly mentioned before. If you need to reduce the number of hours that your employees work between 10% and 60% as a result of this economic event, but you'd like to still keep them on your payroll and supplement their income for the hours that they work with you with additional state unemployment insurance, that's something that we can help you walk through as well. Next slide, please. Additionally, we are standing up at the county with our partner departments at the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs and the LA County Development Authority, the Business and Worker Disaster Help Center, and the 800 number, as well as the centralized website for that should be coming within the next day or two. We are helping people directly apply for disaster loan assistance. We are giving information about the emergency eviction moratorium that was put in place by the Board of Supervisors, and also the city of LA has a similar one. This emergency moratorium, again, around all commercial and residential, but for this purpose, commercial evictions, at least until May 31st. So we are happy to provide more information about that. We also have additional resources. For example, if your business needs help pivoting with respect to employee retraining. Let's say that you have all of your employees sitting at home. They need access to potential coursework or additional skill work in order for you to have them redeployed doing different functions. We are happy to help come up with a customized plan for your business, depending on whether it's worker retraining, whether it's some sort of customized training that we need to put together for you, or if you have additional questions. We are absolutely here to serve you as a resource. That is what we're here for, to help our businesses in the county to be able to retain and hire our skilled and trained workforce that's coming in through our county system. So please, please, please give us a call or an email. We can customize something for you depending on what your impact is. Oh, I see there's a lot of questions coming in here. I'm happy to answer them at the end. But again, thank you. Feel free to contact us with additional questions, and I'm happy to stay on and answer all of those questions as well. And I'll try to put some in the chat while we're talking.
All right, so Caroline, you queued us up perfectly to talk a little bit about upskilling or what resources there might be for employees while at home, and also who might still be hiring. I saw some of those comments already about, you know, who's actually still hiring, who could you connect your employees to if you really care about them, or just are trying to still support them, but you yourself can no longer employ them. So I'm gonna pass this over to Luis Castanon over at Goodwill. You wanna introduce yourself and maybe also give some background just really quickly about what Goodwill does. A lot of people on the call might just think of Goodwill as the stores and not know about all the workforce development, Luis.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Jessica. Appreciate it. And thank you everyone for being on the call. So actually, if we, Dave, if you want to go on to the slides, I believe there's a slide around just Goodwill introducing us here. So just so everyone knows, again, my name is Luis, and I have on my team, Tracy DeFilippis, who's our sector strategist and our apprenticeship coordinator for our manufacturing work. And I also have Rebecca Miller, who's our project lead on Hire and Hopeful. And both of these initiatives are working with employers on certain work around the county. So just to introduce a little bit of Goodwill Southern California, you all know our stores, but we were actually established in 1916 here out of Old Vera Street in downtown. Our mission is to transform lives through the power of work. We operate 12 employment centers across Los Angeles, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. And so out of all the retail employees, we have about 3,800 or so employees across all of our retail of our enterprise, but 240 of those are workforce development staff. So we're actually focused on workforce development issues, similar to what Carolyn mentioned earlier about just providing information to employers and helping them with hiring needs, as well as retraining and upskilling. That's the work that we do. And then last year we served about 29,000 job seekers across those 3 counties. Next slide. So today I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about the work, or what Carolyn mentioned in terms of upskilling. We know all of you are doing a lot to sort of navigate and manage your businesses right now. And one of the things that you're talking about is sort of the upskilling. And for us, this conversation around upskilling really started within our manufacturing work. So in 2015, we became the manufacturing sector intermediary with the county and within the county and LA City. And so that meant that we started to do more research on the manufacturing sector and really trying to understand sort of the needs of that sector, and then trying to needs of that industry, and then trying to really figure out how we might be able to support them with government, private funding, and all other sort of funding that's available through the workforce system. So the key findings from that work were around, what employers want, that employers want to upskill their current workforce. That was one of the key findings. That there was challenges with connecting to the formal education system for a variety of reasons. And then there was just unsure on how to start the upskilling conversation with employees. And then the other key findings is like, what options, once they had the conversation, what options were the best for them, right? Is it a customized training program? Is it going through community colleges? Is it an online system? Is it an apprenticeship? All of this was just a conversation that came out. It's just what was the best option. And then the last thing that really came out through this through this work was, how do I manage the process? Once I do choose an actual option, what's the best way for me to manage that, right? Who handles that on my end? Who handles that for our work? So one of the things that we did with just the thing that was bolded there was just, how do I know to have this conversation around upskilling? What's the best way to sort of have that conversation or upskilling? So this is not new, but we came up with this upskilling training matrix. Is a very simple matrix here that we use to have that conversation with employers. And the matrix really allows us to just understand who at those companies are trained or not trained in a specific skill, who can train others in that skill, and who's actually improving your work just through data, right? They're getting the data, they know how to do these things, they know how to teach, and they can actually improve the work. So I'm gonna just pass it over to Tracy DeFilippis to talk a little bit more about the upskilling matrix here.
Good morning. Thank you, Luis. Yeah, this is an interesting matrix, very simple, and actually just an ability for you to define upskilling training opportunities and identify upskill training gaps. So we'll get to the next slide in just a second, but this is a way for companies to learn how deep their bench is by department or function. It really provides a path to upskill employees directed at company priorities and objectives. And right now, company priorities and objectives have changed. So this could be a really timely, simple mechanism to use. And as you can see by looking at the matrix, you see to the left, that horizontal column, sorry, the vertical column of names, you would place names of employees there, and then along the top, the horizontal axis, you would be able to put some skills. And if we go to the next slide, we can kind of give a show or a demonstration of what that looks like if it were to be filled out. There's some color coding you see in the legend in the upper right-hand corner, where you see the different colors indicating where someone would be in terms of their skill development. So we do have this as a PDF file that we can release to everyone. We have a do-it-yourself descriptor of actually how to, as a how-to guide on completing a matrix like this, and we'll provide that as well. In fact, I could probably even link it to the chat box so everyone could get that pretty quickly. So
Yeah.
there's actually just 7 steps in filling that out. The guide will be able to describe that to you. So just real briefly, you would use the skill to the training matrix to list those topics horizontally, then use the trainees along the side to for department and function. And then you would rate by color. So if you can, it's a little bit blurry, so it may not be clear to see. You see has been trained is a red sticker, can perform the skill solo is a yellow sticker or yellow color, can train others is a green color, and has been improved with data is a blue color. So then you would just really step back and visualize where those gaps would be and decide on what those priorities would be. And this may be really helpful in terms of scaffolding your workforce, in terms of the social distancing, and your crews would look very, very different. And this would be
I want to cut in for 1 second here, because I want to just give another example of how relevant this could be for any of us. If you have staff that are working from home now who then can't do their traditional duties, but there were trainings that you would have, imagine 2 months ago, love for everyone to do. For those who can't afford to do so, this could be a great time to find those resources to provide these upskilling opportunities. A good example would be a lot of banks have reached out. We do some of this work as well. Some banks have reached out and asked, hey, how can we help our employees be better customer service reps? And they could provide online training for them to do that. And there's resources. Or you could provide, let's say there were consulting companies, right? And you wanted your staff to learn a skill such as getting better with Excel or Word or GIS mapping. Maybe they could take a UCLA online course during this time. So there's all kinds of things, but if you use this matrix, you can plan what works for you. I'll pass it back to you, Tracy.
Jessica, that was great. I've been hearing a quote lately, which is let no crisis go unused, right? So this is an opportunity in real time to assess your bench by department and function, and also provide some related extra learning, as you mentioned. And typically we use that matrix in our apprenticeship work. And by no stretch is an apprenticeship a short-term fix, it's a long-term fix. But this element of apprenticeship that we use right now with over 1,100 employees, over 15 different companies, has been really, really instrumental. So it's something that could be deployed now in this critical time.
Yeah, and I would just add that this tool is really a conversation piece. It's a tool to start generating conversation about the gaps that might exist within your workforce, and especially as businesses are having those tough decisions about having to lay off employees. This could be a really good way to understand where those gaps might exist if you have gone through layoffs. And then if you do have individuals who are in need of training, you can look to your bench and see who is able to train those other workers. And then you can also see if you do have sort of a mass of employees that need a specific skill, right? That they're missing scaffolding or some sort of skill within this. And before saying that too, this tool, what we've noticed is that it can be used across a variety of different industries. So we have had education use this. We have had obviously manufacturing work use this, but there's others too, especially even us within the nonprofit workforce development system, we've used this as well, just to get a glimpse of where those skills might be. But once you identify the gaps and identify the skills, then you can look at what resources are out there in order to help support the training that needs to occur, right? Either someone on staff is going to be able to provide that learning, or there's actually educational options out there that are free that you can also use in order to upskill individuals through that work. Some of the more specific industry platforms like Tooling U, right, that we have right in the middle above there. Tooling U is not a free subscription, right? Those are still online platforms that you have to pay for to gain access. But what we are seeing is that there's a lot of different educational tools that are out there and educational options that are out there that are becoming free because of everything that is happening right now. So, you know, one of the things that I would say, one of the things that we definitely practice is just reaching out to our industry associations. Our industry associations are a great resource, especially during this time, to just see what options are out there for learning, especially online learning platforms. And then I would also, you know, just contact some of those organizations, especially if they have a fee, and just see if they're willing to waive fees during this time while you all are upskilling or needing to new skills. This next slide is actually that was on the small business development website, and it was just around communication. We also have had, and we're going to be having ongoing conversations with our manufacturers every Friday, and some of you who are in manufacturing, if you want to join that, you can. We are having just conversations with manufacturers about how they're working through these times, right? What are they doing to get answers to some of those questions? And you all have a lot of the same questions that they have as well about what do they, what are the different laws and bills that are being signed right now, and how do they relate to me if I have staff who are unemployed? All these questions that are happening. What we are doing is just creating a forum, much like what the LA Chamber is doing here, just to have some of those conversations and to folks to learn that. And from the small business side, this is some of the things that they outline as just best practices, which is really around communication. And that's also what we heard from our manufacturers, is just share what is going on and what the plans are that you have for your employees, and just be as honest with them about what's happening. I think everyone is in this together, and we all understand sort of the changes and the tough decisions that have to be made. And I think what we heard from some of those conversations is just about the need for honesty through sort of this process, so that folks can plan accordingly in that way. Tracy, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that Friday meeting.
You know what, I'm going to actually attach the document to the chat box and invite folks if they want to opt in. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're going to have a 2-hour segment, an online learning series, where even this coming Thursday, the 26th, we will be talking about the matrix and how to use that more specifically, with some training, which is going to be a little bit more in depth. You'll love it. And then we're going to be covering other items as well over the next 11 weeks. And then we have our Fridays lessons learned, really just more focused on COVID. And I'll also send a document on that so you can opt in. Please connect with Tracy D. Philippus on LinkedIn. I can invite you into the LinkedIn group community that we're using to share all these tools. I look forward to connecting with you.
Perfect, thank you. And then lastly, I know that Carolyn touched on this, and we've already been sharing on the box there, on the chat box, but there's obviously the link to apply for unemployment insurance claims, which is a question that folks had, and just some of the contact information, but I'm sure we'll share all of that, and the Chamber has some of that information as well. So again, the upskilling training matrix is just a great tool to have that conversation about upskilling, especially through this whole time. Thank you.
Great, thanks for that. Perfect segue again to, I think we're to questions. And so there's a plethora of questions that have already been typed in. I've seen 3 categories so far, so I think maybe we should start with those categories. The first is, you know, just the facts about what are the specific resources, and is there a one-stop shop for such resources? A lot of people are putting together these rundowns, but the WEDAC site that they shared, the BizDev site, which is in the comments here, and we'll send this out with the email, the bizdev.com, has a lot of stuff. So does the unemployment insurance link, which is how you apply for unemployment insurance. And then the Chamber put together a resource list for employers, for employees, for education institutions, which is also a really great plethora of things. So we'll put together those in one email and send those out with this link.
Jessica, I'd like to add just recently and I know there's a lot of businesses on here, but if you have folks that are going, you have to let go or whatnot, immediate jobs, the city we have the AJCCs and the workforce centers are working virtually right now, so they can access those, but LA Job portal just launched, and these are immediate jobs, and I'll put it in the chat box, that you can see so it's a lot of the grocery stores, things like that, but those boost it up, right? So if people need a job just right now, they can access that through that resource, and we can add that as well to that.
Perfect. So I'm gonna start off with a few of the questions that were already asked. Let's start with like quarantine rules. Some of the employers on here might be employers that they're in that business class that's allowed to still work, such as a painter or you know, an essential service like a grocery store. One of the comments that was put in here is, can we ask employees to run errands, just go to the bank? Right now, we have not declared martial law, and someone else please hop in here. But the answer to that, I would say, unless you're in that essential class, I don't think you should. But does someone else have a better answer than my answer? All right. So discretion is our key here. Now, another question that is asked is, oh boy. Okay, so how for unemployment, this is specifically for all the employee questions I'll go to first here. So can someone get unemployment if they have multiple jobs and get laid off by one of them? Also, the next question attached to that will be for solopreneurs, which I think some comments were there. Carolyn, do you want to talk about what they do? I know there's special things being done right now, but if you are laid off from one job and you have multiple jobs, can you get unemployment insurance?
Well, if there's been a reduction in hours, yes, you can apply for unemployment insurance, although this sounds like a pretty specific situation. If someone's working in the gig economy or as an independent contractor, we should be getting more information on disaster unemployment insurance relatively soon, which allows the state to deploy unemployment insurance to people who are independent contractors or who are working, you know, many part-time jobs, but we would be happy to talk individually with that person if they want to refer them to bizdev at LA County, bizdev at weedax.lacounty.gov. Also, I put my information in the chat box if anyone wants to email me directly.
So just to clarify with that, Carolyn, so when it comes to sole proprietors, so someone who is a contractor but does not have employees, so therefore has not been paying into unemployment insurance, what's happening is the disaster plan that's being rolled out has not been clarified yet, will likely include those solopreneurs in that package, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, but as of right now, we don't have clear information.
I haven't followed this morning, but if there's an official order, disaster order for the state of California, we can activate that. And again, we're in contact with EDD and we'll get that information to you as soon as possible. And I also wrote earlier, but the chat is very active. If anyone wants to be kind of added to our listserv, we are constantly pumping out information to our businesses. And I'm happy to add everyone here to that listserv or not. You can just let us know.
All right.
Jessica?
Yeah.
Jessica, this is Andrea Nunn with the LA Area Chamber. Hi.
Hi, Andrea.
Great job, and thank you for bringing all of this information to us with Carolyn and Luis. I just wanted to go back to the question regarding essential services. This did come up in an earlier call that we had today with regard to this topic. We would want to provide greater clarity around this, as well as we understand from some of our other companies that for their employees, like in the construction areas, they are providing their employees with a letter from their company that defines that they are categorized as essential services, and this is why, and location of their business, as well as what they do. So we had asked for some samples of that, and on our resource page, we'll put up some samples that might be helpful for businesses who do need to have their employees go out. We will provide that information so that you can use it as perhaps a template or guidance in terms of giving to your employees if they need to be out and about, if they're essential services.
Great, thanks for that. And a lot of the essential services businesses, such as defense contractors or, police, et cetera, are now driving around with actual cards that say they're allowed to work in case martial law is declared, or in case, we start actually penalizing people for being out when they should not be. There's a lot of questions about the work share program and also furloughing people. Carolyn, can you explain a little bit more about the work share program, like how it works or how to, go through the process? I know you go to Biz Dev for more information.
Sure. So we are really trying to get more information out there about the work share program. It's really underutilized, but a great resource, especially for times of economic downturn. The clarification that I wanted to make on my earlier point is that it's the employer that needs to initiate the work share. The employee cannot initiate the work share. So if an employer, for example, small business, suffering from reduced work, needs to potentially reduce the hours, but does not want to outright lay everyone off. So if they need to reduce the hours of their employees by at least 10% and no more than 60%, you can apply to the state EDD for work share. There's a few forms that you have to fill out, and again, we can help guide you through that. And as soon as you're approved, your employees would get their salary for the reduced hours that they work and partially augmented with unemployment insurance funding. So that's an employer per employer basis, a great tool. Additionally, regarding the questions about furloughing, I don't want to give anyone legal advice here. I just have to make that disclaimer. I'm not here to give anyone specific legal advice or legal information. But I will say that the furloughing question depends on your specific business situation. And I was about to type in there. You can absolutely feel free to email us offline the individual specifics of your situation. Obviously, if an employee has paid sick leave, sick leave that they've accrued and vacation time that they've accrued, and you're laying people off, because I would assume that like a lot of these restaurants have laid people off, you are legally required to pay out all of the accrued vacation and sick pay that the individual has earned, when you fire them. However, if you're quote furloughing someone, I'm not quite sure what legal mechanism you did that with, and I can help you offline if needed. But we're not serving as lawyers for anyone. But again, happy to help you with that information. bizdev@wedex.lacounty.gov.
Since a lot of people do have legal questions, are there specific resources we should point people to? I know some firms and some legal aid supports are focusing on this type of stuff. Is there a specific entity or entities we should type in the chat box right now for people?
Let me see if we can find a good direct contact for you, but BetZedek has really been the legal services provider that's been quite helpful for small entrepreneurs. They are co-located at our county's Entrepreneur Center in East LA, and they provide self-help services. That's what we like to call it in the legal profession. We're not giving anyone legal advice. We're just giving you the information. You decide how you want to act on that information, and I'll see if I can find a link to put in that chat.
Perfect. Thanks for that. Even if it's just BetZedek's site, that'd be helpful. For employers, I know I'm trying to make sure I hit all.
Jessica, I have a question on the ups.
Go for it.
I have a question on the upskilling. So what industries have increased their hiring? And for those who are hiring, are they doing any screening for COVID-19? I don't know if Louise maybe wants to take that, or Caroline.
There's a ton of industries that have actually increased their hiring. For example, obviously any grocery stores, even stores like CVS or Walgreens, and Trader Joe's, they're all being slammed. So are Amazon. There's a lot of on the jobs site that Rebecca shared. Rebecca, can you share that again really quickly? And you can elaborate on what I'm talking about right now. But there's a lot of those service companies that are, LAjobsportal.org explains who's really ramping up their hiring right now. As far as are they screening for COVID-19, a lot of people have instituted the temperature checks. Not sure if all of those people are, or if it's even mandated right now. Anyone else want to add to my answer?
Yeah, it's not mandated. I know that we are talking with a couple of the employers that are looking at sort of the larger hiring. This is again, Louis from Goodwill, but we're not, we haven't instituted any sort of COVID-19 screening. But there are a couple of questions that we'll probably ask, you know, especially if it's traveling abroad or if they've been in contact with anyone like that. But I think, you know, definitely looking at some of the screenings or especially for temperature screening is probably something that we probably need to adopt as well.
Another question was put here, are the hiring companies screening for their backgrounds as well? I think people that typically have background checks up will likely stick to their protocols. Maybe this would be a chance for people to change their second chance hiring policies, but I'm not really sure. I think that everyone's like legal mandates will still be adhered to it depends on each employer. There's some questions I know that I have missed. Anyone else want to just pop in, unmute yourself and ask the question verbally?
Good morning.
Yeah,
Are you going to be able to share with us all what are you giving us right now via email?
yes. So the whole webinar is being recorded. Everybody who registered. I did have another question here that was submitted in the registration, and it says how do rideshare drivers and other gig employees receive unemployment under AB5?
They would be part of that, and Caroline, correct me if I'm wrong, they'd be part of that independent contractor, stimulus or disaster relief that is going to be coming down. And as soon as that is declared, independent contractors, solopreneurs, which includes those drivers, would also be eligible for that.
I just wanted to clarify that a lot of the AB5 employees, unless the legislation is still being litigated, but a lot of them have been reclassified as employees as they should rightly be. And should they have been reclassified and their hours been reduced, they could go ahead and apply for unemployment insurance. I don't know what the person's specific situation is, but if it's with Uber, Lyft, et cetera, and you can prove a reduction in work hours, we can contact EDD and just get a very specific written answer on that. But I would encourage those individuals, if they've already been reclassified as employees, to go ahead and apply for the unemployment insurance now. We know that the federal government through the state has waived the 1 week waiting period to apply, so people can apply right away.
And just to be clear, I've heard on a lot of other webinars, other resources that have been going out, that people are really being pushed to please apply for unemployment insurance or supports sooner rather than later, because there are currently a finite amount of resources, right? So, and this processing will take time. And so if you think that you are in need of resources, apply and let the government figure out who to allocate things to, how to do so. Through those sources. So there's a number of other questions here. One, again, about specific health implications that I don't have the answer to. Hopefully someone else on here might chime in. If a company has someone who has been infected, are they required to do a hazmat cleaning of the office? I think people are trying to figure out the litigation around this or mandates. I don't have a specific answer. Does anyone else on the call have an answer specifically for that?
Hi, my name is Julie Salinas. Every employer is obligated to have, per OSHA, safe work environments. So I would say that if you have found out an employee was infected and came to the office, it would be best that you not necessarily bring in the hazmat, but bring in a specific cleaning crew to heavily clean the offices.
Great, thank you for that. What happened if you owe an overpayment with EDD? How will that affect you during this time? Could you still keep getting resources, et cetera? There's a lot changing right now, but if you have, I think the EDD is going to be trying to sort out all this stuff as well. Maybe add that to your application. Rena, you've added a lot of good sites on here. Do you want to explain what some of these are? Rena with Rediff, if you're not on mute, do you want to explain some of your sites? Because I know what they are, but not everyone might not know. I'll say in the chat box, Rena DeAssis, she works with Rediff, and she just put in here a lot of those, the lajobportal.com site that Rebecca shared earlier that has a listing of employers that are already hiring, which is the city job portal. But there's also NBC put up a whole list of a lot of companies that are hiring as well. So that's in the chat box, which could be included here as additional resources. She's losing her voice, so hopefully she's okay. All right, I wanna do one more thing here. I'm sure there's other questions, but walk us through like one scenario, because I think examples might answer some of the questions a lot of us have. So a lot of small companies have a lot of questions for what is the process for applying for things. So if we walk through this process, maybe you will understand where to go for things, right? So imagine you are a travel company that sets up corporate travel. You used to be booming and you had 20 employees. Well, already you have laid off 10 of those people, let's say. Where would you send those people? To the unemployment insurance link? Can you go back to that website with the Goodwill's link with the unemployment insurance link? Right here. So if people need to file an unemployment insurance claim, they would go to this site. Now, if you furloughed people and are trying to figure out, maybe you can do the work share thing, you go to the biz dev site that Carolyn Tarosis spoke about. There's a lot more information on there that LA County is trying to figure out how to help employers. Can we put that link up? I think it's on one of Carolyn's sites. Links, if you go back to the, go back a few slides.
Just to clarify, we don't actually, there's not a biz dev site, it's our email address, but we do have a site. I'm trying to get the email URL for it right now. It just launched. And then we're also launching today or tomorrow on our lacounty.gov/COVID-19 website, a centralized business and worker disaster help center with an online portal, a way to ask questions, an 800 number, etc. This is all valid information that you have right now to contact us today. We're just imminently working as fast as we can to get the information out in a centralized website, so it'll be helpful for you guys. And I just have to say, our team here, it has just been working really hard overtime for all of our businesses and workers out there in the community, and they've done an amazing job, and I just have to give them all the kudos.
Thank you for that. Julie, I see you raised your hand. I'll get to you in 1 second. But now imagine, back to this travel company, right? Now this company has 5 people still working, and the company itself really is in need of financial supports. Where should that company go then? What should they apply for? I know that depends. What is the resource they should be looking at then if they need financial supports to keep the door open, just not entirely shut down and fold during this crisis? Caroline, do you want to chime in for actually the specific, like the company supports applying through?
Sorry, I was responding to a different question while we were.
I was thinking if a company itself now, not just the employees, but the actual employer wants to actually apply for financial support to make sure they don't go bankrupt during this time or have to fully close their doors forever.
Oh, right. What would they do? Okay, thank you. So the number, first of all, Sharon Payne from our county team put the countywide workforce site, which is very helpful and provides a very in-depth matrix of all the different types of unemployment insurance leaves, financial assistance that you can apply for on the worker side. On the business side, I'm happy to also send around our FAQs document that our team put together. But again, can you go to that layoff aversion slide from LAEDC? We partner with LAEDC to provide one more slide back again, one more. Thank you. I really, oh no, forward one, sorry. Yeah, I would really encourage everyone, if they're having really urgent, immediate needs, to either contact LAEDC, or I put the link up in the chat box a little bit earlier, to immediately apply for some SBA loans. The problem with loans, we all know, is that you have to pay that money back. So if you're in a hole, it's going to be really difficult to pay that money back. We are advocating at the state level for comprehensive business assistance legislation. We're working with a couple senators right now, and we're working hard on the grants piece because I think people need an infusion of cash right now to keep people employed. And I'm happy to kind of talk more about that offline with anyone. But again, go directly to SBA or talk with LEEDC about some other potential funding opportunities for an infusion of capital right now. And as soon as our website, our county-wide website for the Disaster Help Center is up, I'll email that to everyone, and you can call us anytime and we can walk you through some options.
Great, thank you for that. Julie, you have your hand raised. I didn't know you could do that on this app, but apparently you can. Julie, do you still have a question?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to kind of make a comment back to employees and where to direct them for unemployment insurance and so forth. You might have kind of already covered this, but it's worth repeating anyways. When you do terminate an employee, it's important that the employer, even if it's a layoff, you always must give the employee a notice to employee as to change of relationship form, the HIP notice, and the California's programs for the unemployed. It's the DE 2320. That packet has all the information to help an employee get unemployment. All the information is in that packet, and those must be handed out to every employee as they're terminated or laid off.
All right.
Jessica, I saw a really good question earlier. And it says, is there any advice for students whose work study positions have been terminated? Are these students eligible for unemployment? Is there any current legislation to address this? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
No, but that's a great question.
Great question.
And I would just say that people are like fast and furious putting information into the chat. But Rena is absolutely correct. The city EWDD launched a microloan program. Again, these are loans, not grants. But that's something that you can go to if you want to access some city funding as well. And then Isidro from our team put multiple sources of funding together. We are working with our LA County Development Authority to repurpose. I mean, we are working with them to see if there's a way to get some of this money out there more quickly. We're working with the state EDD to try to get some of this money out there. And of course, we know that some federal disaster assistance funding is coming down. It's a question of how quickly. And so we're just trying to act as quickly as possible.
Great,
Excuse me. I'm sorry. This is Libby Williams with the USC Center for Economic Development. Regarding that work study program, the question came from, students should be advised to go directly to their campus financial aid center or to their work study office. That's where they can answer that question best.
Great. Thank you for that. Karen Hernandez, great question that she sent out. What are the programs that street vendors could qualify for? Assuming they are independent contractors. Then,
I can answer that.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. Go for it.
Yeah, so we've been working with DCBA, who Department of Consumer and Business Affairs, and actually we've gotten that question from several people. DCBA works with Inclusive Action to support the deployment of capital in the form of loans, again, not grants, but loans. And they are also fundraising to give $400 cash assistance to those who don't qualify for government support, i.e. those who would be undocumented. Those loans would likely be under $5,000, but we're trying to get some of that federal as well as local assistance out to the street vendor community as well.
And then for those that are asking about the chat box, you can actually save the chat right next to where you're typing. There's those 3 little dots, and you can save the chat. So you can have that as well, but hopefully the chamber will also send that out.
There have been a number of questions about help for nonprofit companies. Carolyn had put in the chat earlier that they're working with the state and we're figuring out the any sort of assistance programs for nonprofits during this time. if you are like me, you've seen a lot of the nonprofits you follow or support have already put together disaster relief funds and are trying to fundraise because they're terrified. Yeah.
That's absolutely correct. Again, if anyone has specific legislative ideas, happy to hear them. But the comprehensive disaster assistance package that Senator Wiener and Senator Gonzalez are likely to introduce at some point when the legislature comes back in session would include, most likely we're looking to include nonprofits and social enterprises if you didn't already qualify under the definition of small business. But of course, all of that is to be negotiated. And also, I just wanted to say hi to Libby. I didn't know you were here, but hi, Libby.
Hi, Carolyn.
Any other questions? I know we've probably missed some, but feel free to unmute yourself and speak so we don't miss you.
Could I potentially ask a scenario question? I own a professional services company and was in the process of potentially bringing on a number of employees as W-2s, but it was pending beginning of a contract. And now that contract has been delayed. I've never paid these people yet. So, you know, I haven't contributed to UI. Is there any avenue for them, or what instructions should I give them?
Stacy.
So again, without going out overstepping here, can you email us the specifics of your circumstance? Again, we can't give you legal advice, and this does sound like a legal question, but we can try to give you some self-help if you wouldn't mind emailing us privately.
Sure, thank you.
Something that some advice as a professional services firm that that I run, causeIMPACTS. I've tried to be preemptive with a few clients, knowing that I don't want them to just full on cancel contracts I already have or that I haven't started on, but I had signed a contract or was about to. I've asked if we could, please sign the contracts and defer it, a no cost addition deferring of it. Two people have actually, basically said, we don't know if this is going to go forward. And I've basically been really generous and said, okay, well, whatever we can do, let's figure out if we can do things online, etc. Trying to be really sensitive that I'm not, trying to take advantage of the COVID-19 situation at all, but just that we're trying to figure out what makes sense for people at this time. So if there's any way, you can defer contracts or help out your clients, that's obviously just something that I know is really hard for us to do, but just trying to figure out ways to be helpful during this, but also still make a living and keep our companies going. Other questions? I know we have only a few minutes left here.
Good morning. My name is Sam. I was calling because I have some clients who are public sector clients who have not paid invoices. And I wanted to know how should I proceed? Because I won't be able to meet my payroll if they don't pay their invoices.
Again, we can't provide direct legal support, but if it's something that they are due, you can reach out through the traditional means through their invoicing departments and accounts payable and request those funds, not in advance of when they normally be paid, but in general. So if it's a specific legal question, I would start with the public agency and then go through one of the legal supports that's been put up here. We have 1 minute left, so I want to close us out with clear next steps here of all the resources that have been presented. So as I think David shared in the chat box, if you click the 3 little dots in the right-hand corner, you can click it and you can click on the very top, Save Chat. That will save all that information to your desktop. Also, this PowerPoint will be sent out to everyone who's been on this. And I'm assuming, David, I'm making an assumption here, that most of the resources listed will be added to the Chamber's phenomenal list of resources you already have on your site.
Yeah, so the whole recording is going to be sent out in our thank you email. All the resources will be added to the Chamber's resource tab that you'll see at the top of the page. Also, just wanted to acknowledge the slide right here. I know Rebecca already covered the City of LA's job portal. But we do also have a small business development center, which is the first link at the chamber. They're providing free one-on-one advising to all small businesses. They have a team of 40 different advisors, and they have put together specifically a relief team specifically for COVID-19 issues. So that's the link right there to sign up for advising. Also, this webinar is one of a series that the chamber is hosting. So every Tuesday and Friday, we will be hosting webinars on different topics. So we do have another one coming up this Friday. So just look out for that.
All right, well, thank you so much to everybody. I saw a few comments about not having the 3 dots in the chat box. I'll say it one more time. Maybe, David, could you copy and send out the chat as well with the thank you email? So if people don't know how to copy it themselves, we can send it to them nonetheless.
Yeah, I saved the whole chat myself.
Great,
So
well,
we'll include that.
all right, well, thank you to everyone. Like the chamber will be doing this again, and I feel your pain. I've had kids knock on my door 4 times since I'm starting this, so thank you. Hang in there, homeschool, do what you got to do to get through this, and please stay healthy.
Bye, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello?